DeGray County.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of Attack Wrap. We're your hosts, Zach Scribner and Adrien Musso, joined by General Manager Dale DeGray. Dale, I think it's safe to say this is probably the coldest day edition of Attack Wrap that we've had so far this season. It was a chilly one here in Owen Sound today.
Yeah, obviously I'm not there, but I know I talked to a few of the guys and they were saying how cold it was. But it seems like the chill has certainly struck Ontario for sure.
Just before I go around some stats around the league, with the Marlies minor midget tournament being canceled, how was your extended Christmas break this year?
Well, quiet. I think like a lot of people's quiet, right? So just close family, my son, his girlfriend. That was really about it. We didn't really get a chance to go and do a whole lot. We don't have a huge family to begin with, but not going to the Marley tournament was certainly something different. It seems to be around Christmas time for me and any of the scouts, all encompassing when they have it. So it was different for sure.
Well, like I mentioned, we'll go around some stats around the league, starting off with the OHL Player of the Week. From the Windsor Spitfires, Wyatt Johnston is the OHL Player of the Week, recording 2 goals and 6 assists for 8 points in 2 games, along with a plus-minus rating of +6. Johnson helped the Spitfires climb back to within 2 points of the West Division leading Stu Greyhounds, defeating them back-to-back games on the road. Johnson earned first star honors in Windsor's first action since December 28th on Saturday, scoring while adding 3 assists and a 5-2 win. In the meantime, he also extended his current point streak to 7 games. The OHL goaltender of the week is Nolan Lalonde of the Erie Otters, securing back-to-back wins over the Kitchener Rangers with a 1.44 goals against average and 9.957 save percentage in a pair of weekend contests. Lalonde helped the Otters extend their winning streak to 4, turning aside 67 of the 70 shots he faced in those 2 games against the Kitchener Rangers. Turning over to the OHL standings, the London Knights take the lead once again in the Western Conference, giving them 39 points with their 2 wins this past week. The Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds remain in second place with 38 points. The Guelph Storm and Windsor Spitfires are third and fourth, respectively, with 36 points on the season, 4 points ahead of the Flint Firebirds. With 28 points, the Kitchener Rangers hold on to the 6th spot, just 1 point ahead of the 7th place Saginaw Spirit, and your Owen Sound Attack are also holding on to the final playoff spot with 27 points. And 9th are the Sarnia Sting with 25 points, 3 ahead of the last place Erie Otters, who have 22 points on the season. In the Eastern Conference, the Mississauga Steelheads lead the East with 45 points. They're 5 points ahead of the North Bay Battalion. Kingston edges out Hamilton for the 3rd spot in the division by 1 point. The Frontenacs finished the weekend with 37 points, and the Bulldogs finished with 36. Look for the Bulldogs to skyrocket up the standings with the deadline acquisition of Mason McTavish. The Barrie Colts remain in the 5th spot in the conference, riding a 7-0-1 streak in their past 8 games. Oshawa is 6th in the conference, but are just 3 points ahead of the Ottawa 67s. Peterborough currently holds the final playoff spot in the conference. The Niagara Ice Dogs and Sudbury Wolves finalized the Eastern Conference standings in the 9th and 10th spot. Turning over to the OHL scoring race, Brandon Coe of the North Bay Battalion continues to lead the league in points with 56. Teammate Matvey Petrov and Wyatt Johnston of Spitfires have 54 points so far this season. Rory Cairns is continuing his great season for the Greyhounds with 53 points. Lucas Edmonds falls to 5th in league scoring with 52 points, 7 ahead of Luke Evangelista of the London Knights. James Hardy is back in the top 10 in the 7th spot with 44 points, 1 ahead of teammate Luca Del Bel Blues. Ty Cartier of the Sioux Greyhounds and Brendan Offman of Flint finalized the top 10 with 41 points each. Looking at the top 10 in scoring for the Attack, Denny Gore added to his team lead in points with 3 points on Sunday, giving him 29 on the season. The departure of Andrew Parrott springboards Sergey Popov into the 2nd spot with 22 points. That's just 1 point ahead of Ethan Burrows. Cedric Gandon continues his nice rookie season with 19 points, 1 point ahead of Stepan Makachuk. Colby Barlow is 6th in team scoring with 15 points. The newly acquired Nicholas Porco jumps into the 7th spot. His 14 points are just 1 point ahead of a pair of Attack forwards, Gavin Bryan and William Portocalis, who are each tied with 13. And finally, Thomas Chase sold his spot in the top 10 with the 11 points. Now, Dale, that does it for the OHL stats around the league. So let's get into the interview. With not many chances to take in minor midget last year, have you seen as many minor midget games this year as you would like to in the first half of the season so far?
You know what? Honestly, we've been pretty lucky to get out to. Although there hasn't been tournaments, they've done like they did last year with some showcases, and a few people. There's been a couple in Quinte. There was one in Oshawa. There's one in London. There was one in the GTHL. So you still get a lot of opportunity to see a lot of these kids that are really in the top, let's say 100 anyways, right? Maybe not the depth that you would normally see at a tournament where you watch a team. But I would feel. I mean, if everything got stopped right now, honestly, and we had to have the draft, I'd feel pretty comfortable moving forward.
So that's actually my next question for you. With the new provincial restrictions for minor hockey, is the first half of the season going to weigh heavily into your draft selections come April?
Well, hey, I hope we get to see some more hockey for sure. There's definitely going to be a lot of video that is still going to be out there. Even some games that maybe we weren't able to watch, kids, we can pull up on video. So, I mean, I'd be crazy if I said it's not going to weigh heavily. At this point, it certainly would. I'm hoping that it weighs less as we move forward, because obviously I'm hoping that we play some more games.
You just mentioned it there a little bit, and you mentioned it in our previous episode that you do last season. You did a ton of video in terms of scouting. Has that been cut down this season in terms of watching them play?
Yeah. So far, I've not had to watch as much video, only because we've been able to get out and see most of the kids. Maybe when it turns into the second half, if it means in order to get better or extra viewings of kids, maybe we'll pull up some more video and watch, maybe like we did last year. But I really don't think that's going to be the case. I think already this year we've seen more of these players than we did last year throughout the whole year live.
Now, before we break down the trades that you made this season, I'm curious to know at the time that you traded Nick Suzuki to Guelph and acquired Mark Woolley. Has Mark been everything you were expecting, or has he exceeded expectations on and off the ice since his arrival in Owen Sound?
Well, I think a lot of it sums up when you look at the letter that's on his chest. I think naming him captain, I think sums up exactly what we think of Mark Woolley. I mean, on the ice, he's exactly as advertised for us. Off the ice, I think he's an incredible individual as a young man. The Woolley's Warriors, I think, is a phenomenal endeavor that he's doing. And so in that regard, I didn't know that part of Mark, but any player that takes that on above and beyond what he does on the ice, I think is special.
Now, when it comes to Woolley's Warriors, did he come to you with that initiative upon arrival in Owen Sound?
Yeah, it was something that had been started in Guelph, and we certainly wanted to make sure we helped him carry the ball, and just continued it on. So he's been phenomenal in that endeavor for sure.
Absolutely. So let's get into the trades that you made this year. The first trade of the year saw you move Braden Hislop to Saginaw. Hislop was in the system, but with the amount of defensemen on the team this season, it appeared that he just didn't have a spot on the roster. So were you just not getting rid of him, but were you sending him to Saginaw in order to play in the OHL?
Listen, you can't squash kids. There wasn't a chance for him in Owen Sound. Somebody asked about him. There's no way ever I would hold a kid back if that was the case. It's hard. Obviously, it's hard for me. We have 50 guys, 50 plus players on our roster. So it's hard to try to move every single body on your 50-man roster. But when somebody approaches you about it and it makes sense, 100%, I would do it every time. Every time.
Many viewers at home, and myself included, may not be aware of how a trade conversation starts. Is there a group chat of all the GMs? Like, how does one say this player is available? Let's make a deal. There's different ways.
There is a kind of a group chat that's sort of done through the league. and you can put into the league players that would be on the trade wire. And if you have interest, it goes to every GM in the league. And if you have interest, it's easy. You pick the phone up, you make the call. What are you looking for? Are you really serious about this? Is it just a fishing expedition? Or sometimes if you look around, you can almost see who needs certain type of players or a position. And if you call and say, hey, are you looking to make a deal? Are you looking to bring anybody in? And they answer the question the way you expect, then it's easy. Say, hey, look, I've got 9 defense. I've got 12 defense. Would you have any interest in my defense? Have a look at them, and tell me what you think. And it's just really, it's kind of just poking the bear to see if you can get them to move. And if something comes up, then fantastic. And if not, then, you just move on. And sometimes you just move on to another team.
Now, November 17th, you made the acquisition of William Portecalis. First question, would this trade be considered one of the best bang for your buck trades, only giving away a 12th round pick to Mississauga?
It's got to be right up there. No, there's no question. And in regarding bringing him in, I can tell you that I spoke with Mississauga in the summertime about the same thing, bringing William in at that point. The only thing that held me back from doing it then was that having a year off, I really wanted to see where our kids were at and how things came together. And, breaking from training camp, I really liked what I saw. I didn't think we needed to do it at that point. Obviously with Caleb Lawrence being injured, that took a body away. That was something that I thought we needed to do.
Now, ironically enough, when you look at his stats from this year, in 12 games with the Steelheads this season, he had 3 assists. He's now played 12 games in Owen Sound. He's got 6 goals, and 4 assists. Were you expecting this much production from William so far?
Well, I think I'd be lying if I said I expected him to come in and have a point a game. But I can tell you, if you look at minor midget, and if you go back and look at my reports on him from minor midget, he was an incredibly gifted point producer. Like, without seeing it in front of me, I almost want to say that he probably played in like 64 games or 60 games. I'm going to say he had 85 points. So it's not like he hasn't done it and hasn't produced before. It's like I try to, when I bring somebody new in, to me, it's you want to try to see an angle that can help push them to become the best player that they can be, or that the OHL has seen of them. And for him, he's never lived away from home, and he's never really experienced, being a true teammate, because listen, I played at home in junior, so I get it. It's something different. So when you can experience being away and being with a billet, enjoying the billet life, and you're a different teammate. And I think he's really, really sort of dove into that. And I think it shows on the ice.
That's actually a question that I thought of when this show started, and I had to peg in at the bottom. Before you make a trade, how much do you and the scouts go back to the minor midget reports, and how many games do you watch maybe consecutively in a row before you maybe pull the trigger on a deal?
Yeah, well, I can tell you. So with William, I mean, I made sure I went and watched a few games through training camp. So for him, it might be a little bit different because I had hemmed and hawed about it coming into this season. So I'd watched enough. I made some calls to find out about him as a character type. So that was a little bit easier when I knew that he might be available. A little bit easier for me to pull that trigger on Porto, for sure.
Now, you kind of mentioned it there. Originally, I looked at the trade as a move for a vet forward on a young forward group. It's been said on this show a few times. Nick Chenard told us himself he fit into the dressing room immediately. Was the leadership qualities brought up in your phone call very much with James Richmond?
100% it was about him as and calling and talking to some other players. Here's the one thing with these kids nowadays. If you know somebody that's his age that's in the GTHL, they would have had spring hockey or summer camps or so many ways of finding out what's he like as a young man. Do you know what I mean? So that's pretty easy nowadays because everybody's played with everybody. And as long as you trust the person you're calling to ask the question of, you're probably going to get some pretty good information. But JR in Mississauga and we get along great. I have no problem listening to what he says and taking it to the bank.
Following that William Portacallis trade, 2 days later, the news of Matt Guzda being traded to Barrie came out, was confirmed. How do you know when it's the right time to trade someone?
Wow. I can tell you, talking to somebody today, an ex-general manager in the league, it's really a little bit uneasy because the like you take Goose, he's been here from 16 and he's become what he is because of the organization, and what a phenomenal young man. And to, you really, with Goose, we were giving him an opportunity to do something that was going to be difficult in Owen Sound because he wasn't going to be able to play as much as he truly wanted to. And he knew that. So is it the best thing for him? Yes. So I can sleep at night regarding that. But there's no question when you make a trade, especially with someone that's been with your organization, for 2 or 3 or 4, 5 years, sometimes almost 5 years, you really go to bed thinking, okay, was that the right thing? You kind of know it was, but you really hope that you were right and everything plays out. And it's not about winning a trade or losing a trade. It's more about the individual. Boy, I hope he goes there and does well and finishes his career on a good note.
So just to go off that point, in the NHL, it would be more about winning or losing. But when it comes to junior hockey, are you looking out more for the teenage player person?
Well, when I say winning or losing, I'm just referring to winning or losing that trade, because you'll always be looked upon. Did you win this trade? Did you lose that trade? And that's, to me, it doesn't matter. The best trade is, you know what, if you can both walk away and feel good about it, do you know what I mean? And hopefully, they're better because they get something they want, and I'm better, or we're better because we get something that we would want. So for me, it's not in the NHL, I'm sure they want to do the same thing. Do you know what I mean? But there's less to worry about. I mean, we're trading kids that are teenagers, that are not professionals. I mean, you go to the NHL or the American League, all those kids have gone through all this before, and they may have been traded once or twice, even in junior. But so when we're trading them in junior, chances are it's their first time ever being traded. And basically in their mind, they're probably saying, holy smokes, they don't want me anymore. Not always the case. And sometimes you have to explain that, and maybe a question would be, when somebody's coming in, how do you address that? So
before we go to the highlights from Sunday's afternoon's game against Barrie, how do you evaluate a player's worth? Say, for example, player A is worth 2 second-round picks, but player B is worth a second and a fourth.
Well, here's what I like to do. If a team calls me and asks me about player A, then I ask them, what's he worth to them? I know what he's worth to me. And if they don't answer the number, then there's no trade. But what's he worth to the team that wants him? I'd like to think that he would value him more maybe than I do, quite honestly, right? So if I go and approach a team, in the back of my mind, I have to say, I'm going to be willing to give up 2 seconds and a third, or whatever it might be. And I'm not going to start there, right? Mm-hmm. But if I can get that player less than 2 seconds and a third, I'm going to feel really good about it. But I've got to know that I'm not going to give up any more than 2 seconds and a third. And if they want more, then I've got to go knock on somebody else's door because it won't be happening with that team. But you have to put a value on, because if not, then you could just chase it to the moon.
Fair enough. So, like I mentioned before, we'll head to the highlights now. It was Owen Sound's first game Sunday since December 11th when they were victorious in Flint. With no fans in the building, here are the highlights from Sunday's game against the Barrie Colts.
And the Colts, we're back. The puck about to be dropped here at the Bayshore. We are underway. Thanks for joining us on Rogers TV. Owen, here's Portacalis. From Makachek, back to Portacalis, the shot, the Llama, the save. It goes up and out of play. To Clark in the high slot, delays across one-timer. Allenton, he scores! Allenton's made it 1-0, his 6th of the season. Here's a turnover, Frasca trying to get it to Matthews behind the back. Shot by Cardwell, he scores! Back-to-back goals for the Barrie Colts. Shot by Lemieux on net, tried to save, had to make another stop. Comes loose, they score! The attack couldn't get it covered up, and they'll get set up. Big opportunity here for the Bears. Gore into the corner for Burrows. They're going to switch spots. Burrows swings up top, across one-timer. Petrosky scores! The attack needed that one. Seed, a little indecisive there. He's going to go back, and here's a short-handed opportunity to back hold with the shot off the post. Didn't miss by much. Unlike some hockey clubs are very aggressive, and they're going to force the turnover. Here is Frasca short-handed over to Cardwell. The shot, he scores! Porco, Petrosky, one-timer coming. Corey scores! Another 5-on-3 goal for Owen Sound. Swings the net, won't wrap it around. Instead, he goes out in front. Cardwell was right out of the box. It comes to height with a shot. Chenard got a piece of it, but it gets through. 3-goal lead once again restored. Behind the net, Clark lifts it out. And here's a breakaway for Matthews. Matthews coming in on Chenard. 5-hole scores! A beautiful finish there on the breakaway. Action here in this third period, but as Danny Gore's going to get a breakaway. Turns on the Jets. Gore, stop. Puck sits in the crease, and it's swept aside there by Brant Clark. And there's the exit as it's left for Nicholas Porco. Porco cuts to the right wing with that speed. He gets around Lemieux, lets a shot go, and he wired it off the post. Well, there's a player that certainly wants to make something happen here in the third period. Nicholas Porco with a good chance. Here comes Jodwen, and his shot is denied. It's another official until noon. And here's a chance for York, and a save was made.
It can be hard to get yourself going.
Oh, there's a good save from Voteri. Off the blue line, Petrosky across. Chibrikov with a wrister, and Lama, he's freezing that one because that's a good glove save. There's a shot inside the post. Declan McDonald, welcome to Barrie. He lights the lamp in his Colts debut. Never anticipated getting. Here's Gore in front, scores. That one's going to pinball in and gets Denny Gore his 2nd goal of the afternoon. Barrie Colts come in to Owen Sound on a Sunday afternoon. If there'd been fans here, we would have said they silenced them, as the Colts post a big road victory 7-3 over the Owen Sound attack.
There we have it. Owen Sound's first game in just under a month's time. One that they definitely want to forget, but it was obvious that the team hadn't played in a month. So Dale, as we will discuss in a bit, the last move was made for Nicholas Porco. The trade deadline was yesterday, but the game was played Sunday. Were the phones ringing during the game against Barrie, or did other GMs have the feeling that you were staying pat with the roster you had after the Porco trade?
Yeah, I think most guys were aware that I wasn't going to be like overly active during this trade, trade freeze or whatever. There was certainly other talks, but to me, it still has to make sense. Like we were talking about earlier, I don't want to make a trade just to make a trade. I told our kids in September, I really, really love this group of guys. The really fantastic group of kids. I love what I see. Didn't necessarily love what I saw on Sunday, but I love what I see for the most part. But that's fine. I mean, that's, they work hard. They've got skill. They play for each other. There's not much else you really need other than just getting some games under their belt again and starting to put up some wins. And that'll come.
Now, every Owen Sound fan admires the trade you make every single year for an overage player that makes an impact during the second half of the season and is key for the team in the playoffs. I noticed Sunday with the clock winding down, Nick Porco beats out an icing call down 7-2. Is Porco the player you want to make an impression on the rookies with his time here in Owen Sound?
Yeah, you know what? He's another, I mean, he's a phenomenal young man. Another player that's maybe hasn't had a chance to shine the way that he thinks he probably can in this league. And once again, I'm hoping that we can bring out the best in Nick Porco, so he can show the league what exactly, he has and that he hasn't been able to show. And I mean, he's a phenomenal skater. He can flat out fly. He's got great skills, and he'll be put in a situation to help be one of the leaders. He's one of the veteran guys on our group now. And I just knowing his personality, he's going to fit in incredibly well. Easy fit.
I was going to say Nick Porco, former 4th overall pick. So he's having a career year in terms of OHL production this year. We only have a few minutes left before we go to our break. What are your expectations for Nick to finish off his career as a member for the Attack?
Well, I think you just basically summed it up. That's how I look at it, bringing him in. He's a skilled player. He's really gifted, and he's got phenomenal feet. If we can find some chemistry with a couple of other players, I think we will see the best Nick Porco has shown the OHL, and it'll be with us.
Only about 2 minutes left till we have to go to break. So Owen Sound fans saw Josh Szymanski play for Team Germany at the brief World Junior Tournament. Is there much hope for Josh to come back to Owen Sound, and is there a deadline of whether he's here or he's staying overseas?
Yeah, no, there's the door is still open. That's the way I would say. It's hasn't swung wide open, but it's open, and I'm trying to peek through it. We have till February 10th to get him here. I try to use February 1st as the deadline to really have him in flight to get here, because there's paperwork with Hockey Canada that has to be drawn up and submitted and passed, and that date would be the 10th that has to all be done by. But there's certain things that have to happen and play out in Germany in order for him to even be eligible to come over. He plays in the DEL, in the Division I men's league. It's a pretty good league for him to be playing in. But there has been talk about it maybe being squashed this year due to COVID and new government bodies that are coming in.
1 minute left, so I'll ask you a quick question. If Josh Szymanski comes to Owen Sound, what does that do for the Owen Sound Attack?
Well, it certainly adds to our depth right away, because in my eyes, the one thing that Josh does is Josh is a phenomenal centerman. I've always thought that anytime Josh takes the draw, it's probably 75-80% chance he's winning it. And it's so much easier to play the game when you start a face-off with the puck. One of the things I loved about Josh, and I think, watch him at the World Juniors, I think he can be more offensive. I think he's trying to play a little bit too cautious, too defensive minded. And I think if he came back, he could certainly add to the offensive the flair that we would want.
Fans, stick around. We're going to go to a quick commercial break.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Something is going on with Lucas. These drawings belong to a student of mine.
Hey, how can I help you?
It's me, Sophie. There's people in the house.
Just stay calm. We need to get you to the basement and wait for the cops.
Is there anything in my way?
Wait, Sophie, wait!
Do you have something to share? Let everyone know about your next meeting, your need for volunteers, or your fundraising event on the Rogers TV Community Billboard. Send us your words and we'll bring them to life on Rogers TV and RogersTV.com. When it's time to spread the word, go to RogersTV.com to add your announcement to the Community Billboard.
Are you the type who would keep going or stop? It's not easy to stop when you have an addiction. Legalizing cannabis won't stop addiction. It trivializes its consumption. Let's be vigilant. If you need help, visit portage.ca.
Welcome back to Attack Wrap. Zach Scrivener and Adrien Musso, joined by General Manager Dale DeGray, who can finally breathe a little bit easier. The trades are done for the year. The deadline was yesterday at noon. And like we mentioned, the biggest deal of the year came down midweek last week when you sent overage defenseman and assistant captain Andrew Parrott to the Windsor Spitfires in exchange for a second, 2/3, and a 6th-round pick. Andrew was a huge part of the back end since you acquired him from London in that Kevin Hancock trade. What did Andrew do in order to better your young defensemen on the team this year for years to come when they play in Owen Sound?
Well, I think anybody that's watched Andrew play, you know, he is what he is. He wears his heart on his sleeve. He plays that way. He's like that way both on and off the ice. You know, good or bad, however you want to look at him. He is an absolute leader. He's confrontational. He's a true throwback type hockey player, and that's what he is. And he takes a lot of pride in doing so. And I think the kids, I think anybody that's played with Andrew would walk away going, you know what? He leaves it out on the ice every single game, and it's one of those things where when you do that, you show the rest of the team that this is how you need to prepare. This is what you need to do. And even whether you're getting points or you're not getting points, you've got to figure out a way to contribute. And I think Andrew did that probably 95% of the games he played.
I was watching Andrew's first game with the Spitfires, and I was shocked to see that he was already wearing an A. Does that surprise you at all?
Well, I mean, I think that surprises me, but I don't know the Windsor personnel, right? So who knows? But that's also could be a way of getting them to buy in right away as a leader and a guy to be taking charge. But I could, knowing Andrew, you listen. He just has to be in the dressing room, and he's going to be a take charge guy. He doesn't care. It doesn't matter. He's gonna let you know what he thinks, right, wrong, or indifferent, and you know his teammates are gonna love him for it. They really will, because he does the same thing on the ice.
He led the way in the dressing room for sure, and he also led the way offensively for most of the season. Now he's going to have a huge void offensively on the back end. Is there a defenseman on your current roster that can take his spot?
No, I think I look at it as it's going to be by committee. I don't think that we have one person. You know, we've got some guys that might develop into that spot, but nobody that I can sit here and say, oh yeah, you know, Sam Sedley is going to take over, you know, his spot and pick up all these points and minutes and stuff. I don't see that. I do see it by committee, and hopefully somebody sort of develops into that sort of a role as we move along. And quite honestly, that's how I see it. That's how I thought it would happen. So I'm not shocked by saying that. I shouldn't shock anybody by saying it. But that's how I could see it playing out.
Did playing in Slovakia help in terms of his production offensively? Because we saw this was his most offensively productive season this year.
Yeah, no, I don't know if it did, quite honestly, because if you talk to him about the game over there, the coaches actually would get upset with him when he tried to, you know, do a soft play from below the goal line to the front of the net, something creative. He was not allowed to be creative when he was over there. It was off the glass. It was a wraparound, all stuff that we really don't care if we ever see it, quite honestly. But I think he just developed. For me, he was always a secondary offensive guy that had opportunity with us right out of the gate, and he was able to flourish in those situations.
Now, we went out of order a little bit when talking about the trades. Technically speaking, your last trade would have been the Nicholas Porco trade. There's a saying in sports that sometimes the best deals are the ones that you don't make. You may not say that you left anything on the table or in the war room, but would you agree with that statement? Sometimes the best trade is the ones you don't make.
Well, I know over my 16 years, I've often said that because it's come back, but I say that, and a lot of times it is true. There's no question. But when I say that, a lot of times teams will approach me about a player, but the trade makes no sense, right? So, would you consider that an opportunity? I guess, but when you really look at it, it never really entered my mind. Like I can tell you, I've had a ridiculous offer for one of our younger players, and it doesn't make any sense. So as quick as it comes out of their mouth, no came out of my mouth just as fast. So and the manager said, well, you didn't even think about it. And I said, well, why would I think about it? So the answer is no. And that was the end of it, honestly. So I don't know if I would consider that the best trades are the ones you don't make. At some point I probably could divulge who the player was, but it was for a lot of picks.
If you thought the big fish in the pond was what would bring you to hoist the Memorial Cup, is there ever a price that's too high?
Oh, you know what? I don't know, because I've never really gone down that road where I had to pay an astronomical price to bring in a piece or a set, you know what I mean, from a team to pay that price. Because even when we went to the Memorial Cup, I don't think people thought we probably did enough. But our group was good enough, obviously. And I think for us, it's all about trying to draft and build from within and try to accumulate enough assets that when you do need to make a splash, you may not have to grab that real big piece, and you just add some depth and some character type pieces that put you over the top. And that's how I believe you're going to have success.
Dale, now take us maybe, for instance, after the Nick Porco, after the Parrott trade, after you finalize a trade with the other GM, what are the steps that follow?
You know what? For me, it's one of the things where I like to make sure that the coaches have an understanding of what I think the player is and how he might be able to fit in. The other thing that I like to do, quite honestly, is I don't know if anybody else does it, but one of my next calls after speaking to the player is to talk to their parents and to welcome them to the organization. I think it's key to make sure that the parents know that we have, their son's best interest in mind, and that's why we want them. And I think if I can get parents on side right away, then we get their support, and we need their support. If their son calls home and they can reiterate to them what I've said to them about their son, I think it goes a long way. But it's nice. I mean, you have to remember, these kids are basically teenagers. Some of them are 20, but they're mostly teenagers. And if I can speak to their parents and let them know that we care about their kids, I think it goes a long way.
Now, junior hockey is very cyclical. It seems if you look at your current roster, you guys will be trying to make a run next year or the year after. Okay, so within the next 2 seasons, you start looking at potential additions to your team right now?
That's my job. That's my job. So yeah, there's no question. And through all this, we talked about how do you go about acquiring kids or know that anybody's up for trade. Part of it is that when somebody sends out a list and they send a list of 4, 5, 6 players, it's something that you can always keep. I can print it. I can highlight them on their 50-man roster. I can go into my RinkNet and tag on them that was available for trade and at the deadline in 2021 or 22. So when their file comes up, when I see it, I can draw from that and know that, he offered them to people at the deadline in 22. Maybe this summer I reapproach them And, prices that you pay at the deadline are usually, that's premium price. So normally if I approach somebody in the summertime to try to draw that player out of that team, you might only have to pay half of it. So it's good to keep track of who's available, who's not available, and then have a better idea in the summertime or come next year if it's still a player you have your sights set on. But absolutely, there's some kids that are available or that weren't available that I called about, and the teams will probably get a call back in the summertime. Maybe change their mind or something.
So Dale, in saying that, how do you balance your time between watching kids that may become a future hometown attacker, watching minor hockey, and watching the team that you're the general manager of all in the same season?
Well, the laptop works, the cell phone works, and it's a balance. There's no question there's a balance. And I mean, I'm lucky. I've been doing it for a long time, and I've got an idea of how much time I have to spend at the different aspects of being a manager, quite honestly. But now there's less worry about the other teams in our league because there's not so much interest. I can't do anything until next August, right? So I'll start to worry. Now the big worry is the draft and try to get the order in place for us to make a good selection or selections, and to follow our team and make sure that if there's anything that I can do as a manager, that I'm helping the coaches out to so that they can be their best and the kids have a great experience.
Now we talked some serious stuff. Let's have a little fun with you, Dale. We're going to play a little game that we play with the players and we played with the coaches last week as well. It's called What's in the Hat. So I have a few questions in here. I'm just going to pull them out. They're very random life questions, and just give me the first thing that pops to your head. All right?
Yep.
All right. So first question is, what's your favorite movie?
Probably The Great Escape.
Good. Next question is, that was a Halloween question. I forgot to get it out of the hat.
Was it a costume? Was it a costume or something?
It was. What's your favorite Halloween costume? Your best Halloween?
You know what? I used to actually dress up. I could put on a stocking and I can't remember the character with the goalie mask.
Freddy Krueger. Is that?
Yeah, and then I've actually got a straw hat and mechanic's wardrobe, and I wear a pair of old boots, and I've got straw in my hands and barbecue gloves. So I actually look, and I could just sit there on my front stoop on a couple bales of hay, and the kids would come to the front, and I couldn't, like, if a grown-up came up, I would wait, and then I could grab them, right? They would almost jump off the front stairs. But a little kid would come up, kids would come up and kick me and poke me, but I couldn't make the move because I didn't want them to cry, right? I was like, okay, you got to draw the line somewhere. But teenagers, they would be all like, oh no, he's not real. And then I would wait. Then they would get their candy. My wife would give them the candy. They'd turn around and I would grab them. They'd almost come right out of their shoes. I loved doing it.
So Halloween's one of your favorite times of the year then?
Whoa.
Well, it was when my son was really young because it was kind of cool. He thought it was cool, right? Because he knew underneath there it was his dad. But the other kids had no idea. And there would be parents that knew. They would stand on the sidewalk and wait till their kids come up to the door until I scared them. So it was fun. Sorry.
That's awesome. I'm glad I didn't get rid of the question.
There you go.
What's your favorite food?
Food, probably, well, it's a lot of different things now, but I always love chicken parm.
And Europa pizza?
Classic hockey.
And Europa pizza. There you go.
Shout out Achilles.
Yeah. But I love to cook. I love to cook. So.
Very good. A couple more questions. What's your number one superstition? You can say it as a player or as a GM as well.
Well, I don't have one as a GM, but as a player, I used to always put on the left everything first, whether it was a left shin pad, left skate, left glove, left elbow pad. always did it that way.
All right, last question here from What's in the Hat. Oh, this is a good question. If the bus driver didn't show up to drive the bus to the Sioux on the weekend, which player would you vote to drive the bus?
Mark Woolley. Mark Woolley. He's older. He's the captain. Hopefully he's responsible enough. Hopefully to drive a bus. It'd be quite a haul for sure. But Mark Woolley.
There we go. That was a lot of fun. General manager edition of What's in the Hat. Dale, looking at the OHL standings, 26 games played, so you still got a few to play on the other teams, and you sit 8th in the conference. With the exception maybe of Josh Szymanski, the team's more or less set for the rest of the season. What are you expecting from the team here on out, going into basically April and trying to make playoffs?
Yeah, I think for us right now, I think the guys realize that the time off for us has it was a long time, and some of the teams had the time off, but they stayed in their cities and were able to practice. We didn't have that luxury. We were kind of, I don't want to say forced to have the kids go home, but we spent two 10-day isolation periods with the kids at home. So it made it very difficult. And I think they realize, on Sunday, we got out of the blocks when they dropped the puck. I was like, holy smokes, this is amazing. But that lasted about 9 minutes. And then you could see the wheels fell off the cart in all aspects. So I think they realize they've got a ways to go. But the one thing that I love about this group is they're not afraid of hard work. And they love playing for each other, which is two phenomenal qualities. And they love to win. So I have no doubt they're going to get there. It'll be just a matter of how much time does it take for us to get from where we are right now to where we basically left off on the 18th of December.
I got one more question for you. Speaking of your team and the qualities you mentioned, the other one that pops to mind, there was a game against Kitchener, I believe, a game against Sarnia at home. Your team's ability to battle back, what does that speak on behalf of the team and even the kids' personalities and them as people, basically the ability to come back in multiple hockey games with that never quit attitude?
Well, and that, you know what, and that's it, never quit. And it's a key trait that they have. But in a lot of times, it's an extension of the coach, and he's in it for them. Actually, I shouldn't say they're in it for the team and for them to have success. And quitting is, show me a coach that pulls the goalie with, 3 goals to play that he needs to score. And I'll show you a coach that doesn't quit. Show me a coach that puts his hands in the air and says, we have no chance in the last 5 minutes to score 3 goals. And I'll probably show you a team that's not going to play that hard for that coach. So no, our kids come by it honestly, and it's really generated by the guys behind the bench that are standing behind them. But it's awesome to see that they're in it till the final buzzer. It's a great character trait, whether they have it now or continue to develop it as they move forward. And the new kids coming in next year will hopefully learn that pretty quick.
You mentioned it a little bit ago. You guys spent 20 days in isolation, basically in the month of December. That caused a bunch of postponed games this season. The big question is, are the Owen Sound Attack going to play all their regular season games this season?
From everything that I've heard from any of the conference calls, we're committed. The league is committed to everybody playing 68 games. I can tell you it's going to be tough to get them all in the allotted space that we have right now. That could get pushed out a little bit, whether it's a week or 2 weeks. But it's easy for me to say. I'm not the scheduler. And I think that the other 2 leagues would have to be on board with that. Maybe the Memorial Cup gets pushed back a little bit. That's out of my realm. But if it did, it would be easy to say, hey, let's add 2 weeks to the season. We could get in 6, 7, 8, 9 games, whatever anybody has, I think that would be quite easy to do.
You mentioned it there. You're not the scheduler. Obviously, you're just the general manager of a team.
I would not want that job for anything. So
not these days, anyways.
No.
Would you just presume that there would be a whole bunch of weekday games?
Yeah, we've like some of the rescheduled games that I've put in to try to figure it out. We've had, we would have played Guelph on Monday, right? So there's a weekday. We've got a couple of Tuesdays that are possibly to come up. So I mean, that's the only way we can do it, because it's basically a weekend league, and the only days that are left are generally Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. We play a lot of Wednesdays, so it'll be Mondays and Tuesdays.
We talked about it off air. Usually the Western Conference teams are the ones making all the trades. This time it appears it was the Eastern Conference. Is this a first since your time in Owen Sound?
Well, I don't know if it's the first, but it's the first in many years, I think. But you know what? Hey, good for them. I mean, it's, you coming off a COVID break, everybody sort of wasn't sure where each team would be at. And it's always interesting to see, and credit to the teams that think they're in, that have really thrown both feet into the pond. And there were some of the trades that went through. There was an awful lot of picks, and even some high end players that went with those picks. So you hope those teams that they're right, and they're doing it for all the right reasons, and they get the success that they wanted. Because if not, boy, it can leave a hole for a long time.
Now, before the season, when we talked to you here on Attack Wrap, you had high praise for head coach Greg Walters coming in. He didn't, at that time, he hadn't coached a single game for your team. What has he done so far for the boys in the room, and what do you anticipate for him to bring to the organization down the line?
Well, status quo, quite honestly. I've never really seen. We really haven't had a coach in a long time where the amount of players, how much they really care for this guy, and it shows in spades. Whether it's, I don't care if it's practice, the game, whether it's in the dressing room, it doesn't matter. He has a way of just bringing the kids in. I mean, the coach cares. He cares about each and every one of these kids, and it's not about just your most productive player or whatever you might deem to be your best player. It is from player 23 or 24 right up to player 1. He cares about these kids, and I think they really feel it. And I think anytime you've got that, you've got something special as a coach. And for an organization. And I'm really, really glad that I've been able to see that. I was told that would be the case, but you often wonder how you get to that place. But he's there, and it's like I said, as long as Wally's around, it's going to be exciting to see what happens with these kids.
Just before, we have about 5 minutes left, so we should do a quick week preview here. The Attack start what looks to be a lengthy trip on the road Wednesday night in Sarnia. They look to avenge a 4-0 defeat from the last time they visited the Progressive Auto Sales Arena. The game was on the back end of a 3-3, so look for the Attack to have more jump come Wednesday night. 7:05 is puck drop. Then they head up to the Sioux to take on the Greyhounds for a back-to-back on Saturday night and Sunday afternoon. These two games will be a great test for the young Attack team as the Greyhounds bolstered their lineup this past week with the addition of veteran OHL players. Headlining the trio was the acquisition of Jack Thompson, a Tampa Bay third-round pick in the trade with the rivals from Sudbury. Dale, now that the trade deadline's passed, another year done in terms of making trades, do you say maybe a top 3 favorite trades you've made in Owen Sound?
Oh, well, I can tell you the top trade by far for me was with London. And that would have been Victor Mete, sending him there to get the extra pick. And I'd love to go back and see what all the picks turned into, whether I should say this or not, but the thing that made it even a little bit better was obviously that Victor Mete played in the NHL as a 19-year-old or an 18-year-old, right? So it even made all those picks that much better, because obviously we would never have had Victor for as long as we would have thought we would have had him, right? And then turning the 2 first-round picks into Marcus Phillips and Nick Suzuki. But another trade, and it'll be Mark Hunter brings it up with me all the time, and that is Sergey Popov, right? There was a 6th round pick, I think, and Sergey came in, and I would have loved to have seen Sergey play as an overage, because boy, oh boy, I think 100 points would have been maybe a starting point for Sergey had he played as an overage. And he just turned into be just such a great teammate, and just, I'm sure the fans loved watching him play. Beyond that, boy, I'd be reaching to try to even figure out what a trade would be, the next trade would be. And one that comes to mind, and his name's escaping me right now, the goalie we brought in from Sarnia. Anyways.
Brandon Hope.
Hope. Yeah. Great addition for us. Hope he was fantastic for us. Another really, had great marks on his character. Came in. He was a phenomenal young man. A lot of fun to be around. A lot of fun in and around the dressing room. And put up great numbers for us. But those are some that just come to my mind. I'm probably missing some, because I know I'm somewhat active most years, but we've been lucky to have the ability to find where we were lacking or some holes, and to be able to fill them for the most part. So
before I ask you the last question, I'll tell you my favorite trade you made. He's the name on the back of that jersey, Daniel Cadnach. He's probably one of my all-time favorites here in Owen Sound.
Cat was an exciting player to have, boy. It's he was a great pickup. That was one where I was like, I had to take a big gulp before I did that, because one, it was with the Sioux, right? And us and the Sioux, we love to hate each other. So it was one of those things. What do you do? But Cat was a great addition for sure. No question.
And we only have about 30 seconds, so I'll get you to say a quick word. We forgot to break down the leading scorer of the attack. I'll take that blame. Denny Gore, what's he done for your organization? Just a quick few words so far this year.
Yeah, Denny's come in. Denny's continued on the progress that we expect. He's highly skilled. He's got great vision. He's got a phenomenal shot. And you know what? He wants to be a pro. So we'll push him to try to be the best he can be. He's got to keep taking steps, but so far this year he's doing it, and he looks good doing so.
Dale, big thank you for joining us. Good luck the second half of the season. It was nice catching up with you.
Appreciate it, guys.
Dale DeGray of the Owen Sound Attack. Join us next Tuesday. We'll be joined by Igor Chibrikov and Sam Sedley of the Owen Sound Attack here on Attack Wrap on Rogers TV.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
Venus and Serena gonna shake up this world.
I think you might just have the next Michael Jordan.